Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to my podcast. It's called It's Good to Talk, and it sure is. To remind you of it, you can subscribe to. It's free to subscribe. People know me because I wrote this book for my good friend Stoney McGurn. It's about his life story from 1941 up until recently. All his life happenings, work, and growing up in Ireland during tough times too. Coming to New York during the troubles down south. Driving a taxi, driving a truck, working as a bartender, and eventually becoming a bar owner. All true, some a little naughty, so do enjoy. You can buy it on Amazon. It's also on audio. My sponsors are Liffey Van Lines, a moving company here in New York City. They've been around a long time, almost as long as the New York City Marathon. That's a long, long time. So when it comes to quality and experience, let Liffey do the lifting. So today, I was supposed to have a guest on, but they had some computer problems. So technology is good when it works, and when it doesn't work, Anyways, I did want to get to talk to you myself on a personal basis to go back over some of the podcasts I did recently. So if you missed any, you can always reflect back on some of those. So some of the ones I did recently, I had a cartoonist on, David Corbett, and he's an interesting character, and it was a lot of fun with that, just how he gave an insight, how the art goes in drawing a cartoon and putting a little story behind it. A very good story on that one. I also had on Barbara Vesely, and we talked about suicide prevention, which is a difficult topic to cover in any shape or form because we all know somebody or someone that knows somebody that, has mental problems with depression and all that. So we talked a lot about that. She gave a lot of good information, where to find help, if someone needs help, or if you know someone that needs help. There's a lot of help out there. We did mention various mental conditions like, for example, paranoia, schizophrenia, bipolar, which is a very difficult one. I had a friend one time who had bipolar, and you never knew what son of a bitch you had one day to the next, because that's what they're called, bipolar. Their personality changes, and that changes a lot. So that was important, but there is help out there for a lot of situations like that. As I always say, I don't know if there's help for assholes. If it was, it'd be a suppository, I suppose. But moving along from my sarcastic, funny side, other podcasts I did one about Bitcoin, new currency, and I did that with Adam Cardona. So on that podcast, we covered the history of currency going back to barter, long before there was money, and then money came along. I think it was invented in Turkey, coins, and then paper money came along then, and that was invented in China. And now, of course, then we moved on to talk about the next stages of Bitcoin, and that's an interesting one if you're interested in knowing where the world is going in terms of currency and money, and the advantages of Bitcoin, which are many, just like AI, artificial intelligence, many advantages too. Do not be afraid of change, I always say. Speaking of change, I did a podcast on cybersecurity with Matthew George, and that was an interesting topic as well, because companies need to be very aware and secure their data and their software and everything from people that wants to steal your company's benefits and secrets and indeed money, and that's extremely important. Another podcast I did recently was about an Irishman, a jockey called Declan Murphy, and he cheated death, as we call it, for want of a better word on that one. He fell off a horse that he was a famous jockey, and the other horse was like stood on his head. He had 12 fractures and was almost at death, and safely he made a full recovery. I meet him quite frequently, and he's the first Irishman I know that sat down and had dinner with the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth. I would have loved to have that. And he also had tea with the new Queen of England, Camilla. I'd go for the dinner, I think. Anyways, who else had I? I did have a clown on from Cork, Ed Malone, professional clown, studied in Paris, and now he's making movies and films and all that and doing well. That's the only clown university in the world is in Paris. There's lots of material I know in Washington for clowns, but we'll stay away from Washington. And let me see anyone else that I leave out. I had a filmmaker on from Croatia, Egor Suntra, and he talks about making movies. He's a professor here in New York. Any of you listeners have an interest in photography or filmmaking, low-budget films or high-budget films, and he had a lot of interest in photographs, where he had a very iconic photograph that he took of Alfred Hitchcock, one of my favorites, actually. I think so. I love Alfred Hitchcock. Who doesn't? So there are some of the podcasts that you may have missed. And of course, I will have guests coming up. There's one coming up soon to talk about, I have a car expert on, and he will talk about the history of cars going way back to horse and carriage, I guess, and coming right up to the electric car. And he'll be describing the advantages of the electric car. I know some advantages, but the price of gas is going to come down. And if the price of gas comes down, inflation comes down, hand in hand, really and truly. So that's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks. So watch out for that one. Today I want to talk a little bit, well, not a little bit, a lot actually, if you have the time to stay with me. The podcast is good to talk, free to subscribe. So do keep in touch with me. So today I'm going to move on to talk about the marathon, okay? So the New York City Marathon is coming up on Sunday, November the 5th, okay? So a little background to that. It's 26.2 miles, okay? And now it wasn't always that. Originally it was 25 miles. And Marathon is a town in Greece near Athens. And the distance between Athens and Marathon is 25 miles. But Queen of England, Queen Alexandria, she wanted the race to start on Windsor Lawn in London, so the little royals could see all the runners getting ready to run the big race. So hence it moved from 25 miles to 26.2 miles, and that has stood all the years in all the cities. Big marathons are in Berlin, in Tokyo, in London, Boston, and New York. I think New York is probably the largest, with close to 100,000 people being applicants and almost over 50 completing it. So it goes to the 5 boroughs in New York. It's big and exciting. The weather was generally nice, a little chilly, but good, usually good for the marathons. It was only cancelled one year due to COVID, unfortunately. But I do want to go back to some interesting marathons that we had in the United States, and one in particular, which is an interesting story, and we'll come back to mental issues, in particular cheating and lying. So today I'm going to chat to you about Rosie Ruiz. Okay, now who was she? Well, she was born in 1953. She died, I think, in 2019, and she cheated in 2 marathons. She cheated in the New York Marathon here in New York City. Forget what year that was. And then, how did she cheat? Well, she ran down into the subway, took the subway up to close to the end, and then she finished 11th in the ladies' New York City Marathon, and she got away with that kind of thing. Now, just to preface, I do have a bit of empathy for her, so I'm not going to be all negative on her, because she was involved in a car crash at one time, and she did have some brain damage. I think they actually removed a little piece of her brain, and hence maybe her mental condition. I'll come to that in a little bit too. So she thought she did well, and she got away with it, and she enjoyed the celeb atmosphere of having ran the marathon. Now, where she was working, her workers were excited and encouraging, and who wouldn't be, to someone you know to have done so well in the marathon. So she decided to enter for the Boston Marathon, and she just barely got in, but she told them that she had brain cancer and they felt a bit sympathetic, and she was let in. So she pulled the same trick again, like, well, she was a cheat, wasn't she? Not the first woman to cheat. I mean, I've dated women that cheat. It happens, you know. You just get on with life after that, and you have to kind of, you know, bless yourself and pray for them if they're so hard up that they're a mental condition. So how did she do the marathon one in Boston? Well, she played the same style. It was, I guess, a hot, busy day, and again she decided she would use the subway. But in this time, she got the subway that was a little faster than she had expected. So when she got out, about a half a mile to go to the finish line, she actually ended up being the front winner, and she got the medal and the award. And the 2 girls that were in second and third place, they couldn't figure this out, because if you're at the 18th mile of it and you're well in front, you look like you have a good chance to be a winner or second at least. And you didn't see anyone passing you out, where did this woman come out of? Well, she came out of the crowd. Now, 2 Harvard students two gentlemen were in the audience, and they actually saw her come out of the crowd and jump into the race. Well, good on you, Rosie, okay? So when she did the one in New York, she was actually in the subway with a journalist, and the journalist remembered her then. She was kind of limping. I think she had a bandage on her leg or something. And that was the New York one. That woman came out of the woodwork as well to say, no, she must have cheated. So then the male runner in the marathon also kind of got involved in the curiosity of it. And Rosie was wearing, usually people that run marathons, they wear like a tank top vest. But Rosie was wearing something with sleeves, kind of a heavy cotton thing. And when she crossed the line in Boston, she wasn't even sweating. You would expect the t-shirt to be, drenched, wouldn't you, with sweat if you ran 26.2 miles. But no, she only ran the half a mile. But she gladly accepted the medal and the award that went with it. But 8 days later, she was disqualified. But she couldn't help herself. She kept saying, no, 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 I won. Doesn't that sound familiar? She was so convinced that she won that she just couldn't help herself. So getting back to her mental state, because I did say I feel sorry for her. So what's the difference between a compulsive liar and a pathological liar? Well, they're kind of similar in a way. They're both mental conditions and personality conditions indeed. So the compulsive liar usually lies out of anxiety or fear. So it's almost like you catch a child stealing candy with his hand in the jar, and he says, no, I wasn't stealing no candy. I just put my hand in there, but I didn't steal any candy. And then the mother says, no, just admit you lied. No, I'm not lying. Well, that's like kind of the compulsive type of lie that a child would do. So I'm not sure if that was Rosie's condition. Now, a pathological liar is a different type of a liar. Pathological liar will do anything for his narcissistic behavior, for glorification and that. As a matter of fact, a pathological liar would throw his mother under the bus just to say he won, and he can't help himself, and he or she cannot help themselves and say, actually, I lied, I'm sorry. Now, my old man, when he was alive, he taught us not to lie by drilling into us. He'd say, shame the devil and tell the truth. So we grew up with fearing the devil, shaming the devil, and always telling the truth. And the truth is easier to carry anyways. When you carry a lie, you better have good memory, because one lie will lead to another lie. And this is what happened to poor old Rosie Ruiz when she won. They asked her, when you ran the Boston Marathon, what did you notice along the way? And she didn't notice a famous university where all the students are out shouting for the female winners running up to the last few miles. She never saw that because she never ran that. And that was one thing, okay? And then she was asked about some technical stuff. I'll have to get Adam Cardona back. He's a sports massage therapist. Like intervals. What are intervals? Intervals, and there's another term as well that's used if you're running a marathon. And Rosie didn't know what intervals were. I don't know what they are. I think they're stages where, I don't know, where you pause, break, or catch your breath and move on. Someone will explain that to me, I know, for sure. And there was some other terminology that she didn't seem to know as well. And then another journalist asked her, who trained you? And she said, nobody, I trained myself. Well, that's incredible. I'm not saying that there are people that run marathons. I did an interview last year with Claire Hickey. She ran a marathon, and she ran it in pretty decent time. It's not all about winning. It's about partaking in the marathon. And speaking of Claire Hickey, a lot of people that run marathons, they do it to maybe support a certain charity, to fundraise for a charity. And that's very commendable. I know I supported Claire when she ran her marathon for breast cancer. So it's interesting, the story of Rosie Ruiz, but it doesn't end there. Rosie got a job then in Manhattan, working for a real estate company. And as we all know, real estate companies make big bucks. What job did Rosie get, Rosie Ruiz? Well, she's in the finance department. What does she do there? She's stealing cash. Yes, my friends, she's stealing a lot of cash. So much so that her co-workers can't figure out how she's taking yellow cabs to work, how she's going on weekends, vacations away for just expensive little weekends away. And she was caught stealing the equivalent of over $100,000, probably over a certain period of time. I think she got away with 1 month in jail and probation. So she was obviously lying to the judge and lying to everyone again, that she probably used the brain cancer thing again to say she didn't know what she was doing. Now, then she moves back to the West Coast, I think California, and she marries a guy that has obviously a different surname than her. I think his name was Villas, maybe. And they had 3 kids. I think it was 3 boys, perhaps. And then she got involved in, you won't believe this, or will you? I'm telling you the truth. Of course, nothing but the truth. She got involved in smuggling cocaine. Well, I guess the husband was from Colombia, and she knew someone that knew someone that knew someone. And that went on until she was caught again. And again, she got, I think, a couple of months in jail and probation. Now, she got divorced from that gentleman, but she kept his marriage name. And that was pretty smart for a compulsive liar, because now you don't know her as Rosie Ruiz, you know her as her marriage name. So she kept that and divorced him. And it does get better. The plot thickens. And then she got involved with a relationship, an affair with a beautiful lady. Now, anybody could fall in love with a beautiful lady. Happens every day. But I don't know what her motivation was here. In that, I guess she just fell in love. Not for me to judge. I don't judge things like that. I just speak the truth, don't I? And it's good to talk. Anyway, she died, I think, only in 2019. And she did die, actually, of brain cancer. But she was a sad story, really and truly. A sad person. She kept the medal from the Boston Marathon. And I feel, again, speaking of empathy, that the organizer thought, well, it doesn't really have a huge monetary value. It's just symbolic. And if she's so hard up or not well in the head, let her keep the damn medal and issue another medal to whoever the original winner was. On another year, she went to Boston to meet the actual girl that should have won the marathon. And that woman said to her, "Why did you do it?" And she said, "No, I won it." She was so convinced. She couldn't admit that she told the lie when it was so evident. So I feel sorry for her. And she was such a sad case. So that is the story of Rosie Ruiz and the Boston Marathon and all of that. So getting back to New York City Marathon, November the 5th is coming up. And I did an interview here with Adam Cardona. He's a sports massage therapist. And that interview is good to go back and look over and get some tips on about your training coming up to the marathon. And after the marathon is very, very important. I learned this from my interview with him, is the recovery after the marathon, which can take days if you're not careful how to manage all of your training and your recovery time and what to do and diet and so on and so forth. Now, if you have questions for Adam Cardona, you can send them to my email and I'll pass them on, jhfornews@yahoo.com. That will get me. And also, it's coming up to Halloween. So in another week or two, I'm going to be getting my tarot cards out. Yes, I do tarot cards. Yes, for real. So if you have any questions you would like to ask about your life or where you're going in your life, what you think I can see in the cards for you, it's a bit of fun and we'll do it. I already got an inquiry from one lady, and I won't be using your full name on this It's Good to Talk podcast. I'll just use initials, so whatever your initials are, and then I will pull a few cards for you and flip them over and show them to you like that and say what's going on. And hopefully it's good. But I can tell you, about 100,000 people apply to run the New York City Marathon, about 50,000 complete it. So you can partake. And if you lose, just be a good loser. There's nothing wrong with losing as long as you're a good loser. Okay, I'm going to leave you for now and say Slán go fóill. That means goodbye until I meet you all again. And do subscribe. It helps me a lot when you subscribe, and it's free to subscribe.